Donald Trump is facing a revolt by members of his own party. MAGA Republicans have finally returned to Congress after a 2-week recess, and instantly they are revolting against Donald Trump. Remember how Donald Trump made some of his MAGA puppets introduce legislation honoring Donald Trump? Well, other members in the Republican Party right now, they are killing those pieces of legislation one by one. You see, what happened was, and MAGA Mike's got a revolt on his hand, these Republicans went back to their home districts during this MAGA Mike induced recess, and they got an earful. They got screamed at by their constituents. You promised us no more never-ending wars. You promised us you were going to bring down inflation and make things affordable and improve our health care. Instead, you've taken away our health care. Inflation is surging. Things are far less affordable, and war is back against Iran, this catastrophic and unlawful war that no one in the United States except Donald Trump and his neocon warhawks want to be involved in. Scott McFarlane, who leads the MeidasTouch Network's DC bureau, just filed the following report. GOP's Trump adoration legislation is collapsing into obscurity. Remember when MAGA Republicans introduced the following pieces of legislation? Well, one by one, these pieces of legislation are getting killed as MAGA revolts against Donald Trump. They can't even pick up 2 or 3 co-sponsors amongst their MAGA base because the people back at home said, stop naming things after Donald Trump. We're suffering. Stop with this crap. So let me tell you what's being killed right now. Minting a $250 bill currency with Trump's portrait on the bill. Minting a $100 bill currency with Trump's portrait on the bill. Renaming Dulles International Airport to Donald J. Trump International Airport. Carving Donald Trump's likeness onto Mount Rushmore. Creating and awarding a Donald Trump Peace Prize inside the State Department. Creating a federal holiday for Donald Trump's birthday. Awarding a Congressional Gold Medal to Donald Trump, formally honoring Donald Trump for achieving peace in the Middle East, formally recognizing Donald Trump's role as a transformational peacemaker whose achievements in international diplomacy merit the Nobel Peace Prize, ordering federal health officials to launch a formal study into Trump derangement syndrome, formally authorizing construction of the Trump Ballroom, a House resolution formally acknowledging the positive impact that Donald Trump has had on America, and even more. But those were some of the highlights. Remember when we reported when those things were introduced by MAGAs? Remember when they were like, we're making everyone's life better. This is what the American people want. Nope. When these MAGA Republicans just went back to their home districts, they were told, you better not do that. You better do something when it comes to affordability because you are forcing us into the worst economic conditions of our lives and you are destroying future generations. So Donald Trump is livid right now that this MAGA revolt has happened right away. Trump has summoned MAGA Mike Johnson to the White House where they will be meeting very shortly today. One of the other things that MAGA Mike has to deal with too is that Donald Trump is now demanding $350 billion in emergency funding for the Defense Department, which he unlawfully calls the War Department, because it has fully run out of money. Yep, Donald Trump is now escalating this war against Iran, which has always been unlawful and catastrophic. We've depleted our munitions. We've depleted our strategic petroleum reserves. We're out of money. And now Donald Trump is saying to MAGA Mike, if we don't pass a supplemental or reconciliation for $300 and $350 billion for the Defense Department, we go broke and you're going to strand us over there in the catastrophic and unlawful war that I just escalated once again. So we've got that going on. And then Trump says, oh, by the way, you need to also make sure you combine the $350 billion supplemental for the Iran war to also pay past bills and to escalate this war with what Trump calls the Save America Act, which is his voter suppression act. He said, we need one gigantic, beautiful bill, which was the disastrous bill that destroyed so many people's lives, ripped away healthcare. Donald Trump and MAGA Mike are like, you know how the Americans love the one big, beautiful bill? No, everybody hates that. It's like the most hated thing. We need to do another one right now with more hundreds of billions of dollars so that Trump and Netanyahu can further commit genocide and further bomb the Middle East. So here's what MAGA Mike's doing, because MAGA Mike is in a panic. So he's got to, try to change the topic. And so here's MAGA Mike trying to mimic his Führer, Donald Trump. MAGA Mike goes, the communists are inside the gates. It's time for all freedom-loving Americans to stand and be counted and help us defeat this madness. By God's grace, we will. There's a communist takeover right now. This is a serious threat. There are Marxists. It's communism. It's socialism. They want to abolish all borders. They want to abolish all prisons. They want to defund the police. They want to abolish the entire United States Senate. What else you got, MAGA Mike? Let's just post a photo of an immigrant and a young girl who was involved in a horribly tragic situation, and let's use that in order to attack Democrats and to politicize a tragic situation which should not be politicized. It should just be recognized for the tragedy it is. So MAGA Mike posts this with the help of Regime Media New York Post. It's a photo of an immigrant with a young girl who got killed. And MAGA Mike goes, heartbreaking stories like these remind us of the horrific impact of the Biden border crisis that it continues to have on the American people. Yet Democrats want to reopen the border all over again. We must keep the border secure. American lives depend on it. Hey, MAGA Mike, you do realize that when former President Biden was in office, the Democrats and the Republicans came up with a bipartisan immigration bill for strong borders to make sure that anyone who is involved in any criminal activity gets brought to justice or deported and put in prison, and obviously subject to due process because that exists, but to make sure that there's justice served, that there would be compassion and a pathway to citizenship for people who are here lawfully, who contributed to society, who paid their taxes, and to have an expedited asylum system. But guess what? You and Donald Trump and others killed the bill because you wanted to create the problem so you can run on dividing the country. Also, speaking of running on dividing the country, as I opened up this article to see what was actually going on, here's the headline. 3-time deported illegal immigrant charged with killing North Carolina girl 6 after running a stop sign. And so what this is about is, it says, an illegal immigrant from Mexico with multiple deportations was driving with a revoked license when he collided with a vehicle and allegedly killed a 6-year-old North Carolina girl last week. And so it's on July 3rd, this individual failed to stop at a stop sign and struck an SUV driven by 35-year-old Kelly Toller, who was traveling with her 2 children. Absolutely a horrific and tragic situation. My heart goes out to the Toller family, to anybody who's experienced this. The pain and agony you must be going through and experiencing is unfathomable, and it truly breaks my heart. But MAGA Mike is saying this story is why Democrats, like, I don't. That you're using that tragic situation to attack Democrats who were trying to work with Republicans to pass a bipartisan immigration bill that Donald Trump killed. I mean, just think about the desperate tactics that these MAGAs are using now as they head back to the House of Representatives.
You know, it's funny what I decide to get picky about. The last time I got coffee, it took me about 5 reviews before I landed on my spot. But life insurance? Well, most of us took the first quote that we got and called it done. SelectQuote is a life insurance broker that does the homework for you. Their licensed agents shop over 100 policies and find you a better rate for free. With SelectQuote, getting life insurance is fast, free, and easy. The whole process takes about 15 minutes. Answer a few questions, their agents shop the carriers for you, and you get your quote tailored to your specific situation, even if you've got something like high blood pressure or diabetes. And you'll save an average of 30%. So let's do the math on that. If a policy costs $150 per month, 30% off is $45 a month back in your pocket. Over a 20-year term, that's more than $10,000. SelectQuote has been doing this for over 40 years. 11,000 reviews on Trustpilot, rated excellent. Listen, putting off life insurance could get really costly. Also, it messes with your peace of mind. Now that I know that my family is covered, I can sleep more peacefully at night. Get your free quote at selectquote.com/Meidas. That's selectquote.com/Meidas, selectquote.com/Meidas. They shop, you save.
Oh, and here's a doozy. MAGA Mike is bragging about the Road to Housing Act, which now became law, which Donald Trump refused to sign, and he protested. The one piece of bipartisan affordability legislation, Trump protested it and refused to sign it. It became law because he didn't veto it. And if you refuse to sign it after 10 days, it automatically becomes law. But MAGA Mike goes, the 21st Century Road to Housing Act is now law. House Republicans worked hard to ensure this legislation will pave the path to homeownership and the American dream for hardworking families who have been crushed for far too long by Biden inflation and Biden border crisis, which hiked housing costs by 30% and rent by 20%. Hey, MAGA Mike, it's now July 13th of 2026. Biden hasn't been in office for 2 years. Grow the hell up and act like an adult. You control all branches of government, Republicans, that is. You control the White House with Donald Trump, the House, the Senate, and the right-wing Supreme Court. Y'all are in charge, okay? And actually, it was a bipartisan piece of legislation. So why can't, I think this is what people hate about politics and why people hate MAGA Mike and why can't you just say with this one? This was actually something where the country came together because affordability is a good thing. By the way, Donald Trump didn't support this legislation. He refused to sign it, but it became law anyway. But this was a way to work together. Why do you try to divide the country over that issue as well? And that's why I think the American people see what the hell's happening here. They feel it in their pocketbooks. They see it in their bank accounts. They see the suffering that their family's going through. Then they see all those pieces of legislation, and they told their members, when you go back, we ain't doing Donald Trump Mount Rushmore, Donald Trump Peace Prize, Donald Trump federal holidays, Donald Trump Dulles, Donald Trump $100 currency. We ain't doing that. And so now you're seeing that get canceled and killed. We'll see what happens with reconciliation as it relates to the $350 billion defense package that Donald Trump now wants in order before the Defense Department goes bankrupt. Dude bankrupts. He's bankrupted everything his whole life. And then they bring on MAGAs like this MAGA Republican Senator Jim Banks. He was on the Sunday shows yesterday, and he was like, look, Trump's brought down the gas prices. Sure, they're going up now, but he did bring them down. And you'll see any minute now, Iran wants to come to the negotiating table. And once they come to the negotiating table and they beg us, they're going to beg us for the best deal ever. Then you'll see, then the prices will go down. These are Bernie Madoff Ponzi schemers, these MAGA Republicans. Iran ain't doing that. After 5 months of this catastrophic war that you're now escalating, we're going back to, they want to do a deal with us. They don't want to do a deal. Their civilization is being threatened in an existential way. That's how they feel. Why? Because Donald Trump says, I'm going to blow up your civilization. I'm going to blow you all to smithereens. The people. That's what he refers to the people and says that. So they're rallying around to fight this. They don't want to do a deal with this. And every time they do one, like the Memorandum of Understanding, Trump and Netanyahu and Rubio, they violate it anyway. Anyway, here's what Banks says. Here, play this clip.
Where, Senator, in all this is politics, right, is the midterms. As the result of this conflict spiraling, the average price of a gallon of gas today is $3.88 nationwide. That is a lot better than $5, $6, but it is still a high enough number that it could cost your party the midterms.
Well, look, President Trump has brought gas prices down. Democrats for 4 years under Joe Biden fought to permanently increase the cost of a gallon of gas. And President Trump took immediate actions at the beginning of this second term to bring down gas prices. They have ticked up in the last week, but we know as soon as Iran can come to the table and understand that they have no other choice but to do what it takes to sign an agreement with the United States of America that they will never have a nuclear weapon, that they can't control the Strait, that they can no longer funnel money to terrorist proxy groups like Hamas and Hezbollah, that they can no longer get away with that, then gas prices will come back down to where we want them to be.
And then again, just to show you how divisive these MAGA Republicans are. I've obviously covered extensively here on the MeidasTouch network, the Lorenzo Araujo situation in Houston, where he was killed by ICE and Border Patrol, Gestapo. So this MAGA Republican Congress member, he's asked, people are demanding answers. They want justice for Araujo. What do you make of it? And his response is, well, the real issue here are the illegals who do crime. I wish that people cared about the crime. Stop it. People do care about the crime. That's why there was a bipartisan piece of legislation to address the crime. Y'all root for the crime. Y'all root for sickness. Y'all root for the problems because you believe, well, you will all be the arsonists, and then you'll blame the people who try to fix it. And then you'll try to put out your fires and be like, look, we're going to fix the problems we created. Anyway, here's what he says. Play this clip.
Congressman, this story, of course, making a lot of headlines this morning. What questions do you have about this case?
Well, I wish there was as much concern about the illegal immigrants in this country who've committed horrible, heinous crimes like Lake and Riley and the like. We have millions of illegals in this country. Some are violent and some do wrong things.
So that's what's going on right now. We'll keep you posted every step of the way. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 7 million. Thanks for watching.
New Meidas merch. Head to store.meidastouch.com today and get yourself the best pro-democracy gear and show your support. That's store.meidastouch.com.